Hello, and welcome to the Space Madness Podcast. This is your host, Jeff Nasanov, and we're going to get right to it today. Our guest is Ben Haldeman, who just put a pyramid on the moon. And no, this is not a setup for one of those ancient alien pyramid shows or whatever. So I think we're going to start right there. Tell us about the pyramid on the moon, and then, of course, we'll hopefully go back and get the whole story, how you ended up there.
Awesome. Hey, Jeff, glad to be here. Yeah, last year on March 2nd, 25, a small golden pyramid landed on the moon. And I started this company called LifeShip, and it's a community-powered space movement where our initial missions are to put monuments across space with a backup of Earth in them. And so this pyramid on the moon has the DNA of 500 different species. It's like a backup of Earth's biodiversity. It has 100 different plant seeds from around the world. It has all sorts of art and cultural collections miniaturized onto crystal and these nickel nano plates designed to last a billion years. It has a drop of liquid with all of Wikipedia written into DNA. So there's all sorts of information. It's probably the most information dense pyramid ever created, and it was on board Firefly Aerospace's Blue Ghost lander that launched on a SpaceX rocket. And it launched January of last year, and then it landed March 2nd, 2025, a perfect landing on the moon.
So it sounds almost like a Voyager disc. I'm blanking. Voyager Golden Record on steroids, sort of. Was that an inspiration? That's just what comes to mind first.
Totally. The Golden Record definitely has been an inspiration, and we're creating a modern relic that people can be part of, and that has a backup of life, and we have more dense storage technologies now.
Well, I can certainly see the appeal there. Now, there's a lot of ways to go backwards into the story, all the why and how and who, but clearly this represents a emotional commitment of yours to space and to humanity in general. So I'd love to go back and hear where that came from. I imagine it was foundational for you early in your life. So why don't we go back?
Yeah, I did a lot of camping, and I was a Boy Scout as a kid, and I loved the stars. I had a nickname of Spaceman in my Boy Scout troop, not necessarily because of space, but because they wanted to make fun of me as spacey, I guess. I studied engineering in undergrad, and then I went to grad school at Berkeley, studied mechanical engineering, and I started to work with a professor on an instrument to look for amino acids on Mars. And amino acids are signs of life. And further iterations of this instrument have found amino acids on Mars. So there likely was some sort of life process on Mars at some point. We don't know how advanced or complicated that was, but there likely was life on Mars. And then I went and spent 8 years building big telescopes around the world. And that really got me to, curious about the stars and astronomy and where else life could be, where else we could go someday, where else is habitable. And these telescopes have found all sorts of new habitable planets that are in the Goldilocks zone that could support life. And then I moved up to San Francisco. I joined a startup early on called Planet Labs. And Planet, we built over 500 satellites, the biggest network of Earth imaging satellites ever created, to record our changing planet and help us care for Earth and help us make a more transparent Earth. So that really got me working on satellites in space and working on lots of things in space and being part of 30 different rocket launches, putting spacecraft in space. And so, and that all so my path has led towards a curiosity about life in space. And then I also dove into trips to the rainforest and yoga and meditation and working with shamans. And I really kind of came to the felt sense and understanding that humans are part of nature and we're part of the earth, and that the earth is conscious in its own way, and the earth is an organism, and that the earth is ready to give birth and bloom and spread the seeds of life outwards. And that we're cells of the earth. We're part of the earth, and we're part of what the earth is doing. And that it's part of humanity's purpose is to continue life and steward the expansion of life. And so, I started this company, LifeShip, with the grand purpose of carrying life outwards and continuing life in the universe. And a first mission as a seed bank on the moon is a step towards carrying life outwards. And it's a feels like an important thing that we should be doing for our great grandchildren and our future generations. Let's save a copy of
Yeah.
all life on our nearest neighbor and other places.
Yeah. Well, we save copies of our most boring and useless files. So why don't we save our most important ones, right? You remind me of two things unrelated. One, the line, well, maybe even the theme of the fifth element, which is that time is not important, only life is important. And the older I get, the more I think of that. And, I didn't always entertain the idea that the Earth is alive, but on a previous podcast a few weeks ago with the geologist, it occurred to me that the calcium in my bones is not alive, but the bones that it makes up are, and that makes me up. So I'm opening my mind to this kind of philosophical view that the rocks and the mountains of the Earth are not alive, but who are we to say the larger assembly is not, right? So I like that a lot. And it's interesting to hear you talk about going from basically studying, looking out with the telescopes, looking down with the satellites, and then kind of, instead of looking for things, putting things out there. That strikes me as a big shift. What led you to that change in kind of direction almost?
Yeah, I built one of the biggest networks looking out, the biggest network looking in, and then it just felt like, okay, we're at this time in human history and the evolution of our planet in the universe that now is this time period over the 13.8 billion years of the universe. We're at like a critical time where life is expanding from a single planet to multiple. And maybe this has happened many
Sure.
times out there. As far as our planet's history, we're at this moment over the next
Mm,
years, single years, and then decades. And it's like the an inflection point of life on our planet. And so I feel like um I've 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 done lots of cool things in this area, and that this
mm,
is just my path to be part of helping expand
okay.
life outwards. And yeah, many space companies, and I'm involved in other space companies as well.
Mm,
Building robots for space, or going out there to mine the materials, or
mm,
um, you doing yeah, doing different things. And I feel like I'm inspired about a movement for humanity that's about life and that's about stewarding life and
mm,
um, is participatory and community driven and creating something that people can be part of. And I think one of the things we could use at this time is stories are powerful, memes are
mm,
powerful, collective vision is powerful, and right now I think most people around Earth don't have like a big picture. Where is humanity headed?
yeah.
And like a uniting North Star is like, we're going to be the species that does it. We're going to be the ones that like spread life and ripple humanity outwards. And we're going to do it in a gorgeous way. And
Mm,
yeah, that may not impact your all your day-to-day interaction, but just like having a big picture, like what if we are the species that does this? And what if we become a
yeah.
galactic species and we do it beautifully? And if you have a big North Star that's out there, then it helps rearrange the magic of the universe to help create it in some way. And
Yeah.
we can feel part of something cool and be proud of our species.
Yeah, I mean, and as you spoke, I thought of the sort of very long time horizon of the Earth collecting material from the universe, right? Stuff falling in. And now, really, in just the last 75 years, we're exporting stuff for the first time, and it's increased in complexity. And so it seems logical that bits and pieces of the story of life would be part of that as we reach outward. Now, I would like to go back to Planet Labs, if that's okay with you, because, well, actually, you were doing telescopes before Planet Labs, right? Okay, so can you tell us a little bit more about those?
Yeah, yeah. I was in grad school at Berkeley. I had a friend that was good friends with the person starting this organization, and it was one of the early vice presidents of engineering at Google. Left Google, and he created a foundation. His name's Wayne Rosing. He created a foundation to build a network of telescopes around the planet. He did this as his retirement project, and
Wow.
you know funded the initial part of it. And so I joined. I was the third person to join, and we eventually grew up to 70 people. And built the main telescope we built was 1 meter aperture. So the mirror is 1 meter across. And then,
Mm,
by the time you build the whole carbon fiber truss that holds the top secondary mirror, and then you design to build the custom instrument that goes under as well, the whole camera system, and then it needs to point in two different directions.
mm,
That becomes a decent size, like small school bus, very large
mm.
van sized telescope standing upright inside a white dome on mountaintops around the world. And
Okay.
I did 4 trips to Haleakala to work on telescopes in Maui. I did 4 trips to Australia. I did a
Wow.
trip down to Chile to set up telescopes down there, and then other of these telescopes have been set up in South Africa and the Canary Islands, and I think there's one in Bhutan now at this point as well. And so we built
Wow.
these. We also built smaller ones, which are 40 centimeter mirrors,
Mhm,
and then we acquired, kind of took over maintenance and upgrading for 2 very large telescopes, like large 2 meter diameter mirrors. And
mhm.
those are big robotic telescopes. And we totally took them apart and rebuilt them and put all new instruments on them and upgraded them. And so, yeah, there were 3 main size telescopes that we built, and had about 30 or so telescopes total, fully robotic
Wow.
and collaborating around the planet.
And what were they looking at, or are they
Well,
looking
because
at?
because we had many and we had them distributed, they their best thing was transient stuff that changes over time, where you need one to take images, but then the sun's coming up, so it needs to pass on to another, and the next one
Yeah.
has clouds, so it has to have another one that can see it. And so things that change
Hmm.
are when planets around other star systems. And one of the ways you see those is when a planet comes around the star, it might block 1% of the light of that star.
Mm.
And you need to be able to see it every 45 and a half days, or whatever its period is around the sun, to be able to catch all these. And so if you have a whole network that can always see in the dark, then you can schedule all those at the right times and follow up on them. And then other things are like supernovas, where when a star blows up, and then you want to take an image of it every half hour for like 2 days straight.
Hmm.
And so some of these measurements were very, very hard to do before, where you had all different telescopes and you had to call up your
Sure.
friends in Australia and say, "Can you do this?" And they had a different
Mm.
telescope. But this made it automated and
I see.
enabled it.
So was it responding to a demand in the astronomical community that was not being met by the national space programs, or yeah, okay.
Yeah, and a lot of telescopes, the way they worked was you would apply for time and you would be granted your 8-hour observing window in 6 months from now. And so if another
Sure.
observation came up, that just it wasn't made for like on the go scheduling and fully robotic scheduling. And so yeah.
It's kind of like on-demand scaling in a cloud provider,
Hmm.
where when you need, as opposed to building your own server like in the old days, and then it takes 6 months, and you don't even know if your company's going to work, if anyone's going to come to the website. Okay, interesting. That does seem fairly ahead of its time, assuming that was what, mid
And
two
just like
thousands.
telescope time in general was,
Yeah,
there's not a lot of it, and a lot of
sure.
people want it, and there's infinite things you can study. And
Yeah. Okay, interesting. So what did you take from that to the beginning of Planet Labs? I feel like that there were a lot of lessons there.
so one of the things was we built many of these telescope projects have been very expensive, long projects. And because of the nature and because of the founder who came out of Google, which Google is very famously agile and fast
Mm,
moving and iterative. And we
mm,
took a very different approach to big telescopes, and we just started designing them and building them and testing them and iterating on them and getting prototypes out there. And then when I moved to Planet Labs, we were um, the first satellites were they didn't take great images. Like they were
mm.
they were very proof of concept. Um, the radios only got down like a tiny amount of information. The pointing was only so good. They wobbled
Okay.
a bit. And the camera was only so good. But then what we did was we did an iterative approach, and we launched on rockets 2 or 3 or 4 times a year. And so we were releasing a whole new build of these satellites every 3 months about. And so
Wow.
we were very rapidly iterating. We
I mean, that's software iteration scale almost.
Yeah, yeah. And
Wow.
we were high risk. We were putting these putting these satellites together, like, you know, pulling all-nighters the days before we had to deliver them to the rocket, and pushing for
Wow.
as much time as we could and as late as we could get them. And so we were, and and some didn't work. Some of
Yeah.
them took blurry pictures. Some of them had the radios,
Okay.
barely could get images down. But when you're building 500 of them, you take a different
Yeah.
approach and you build them 1,000 times cheaper than they could have been than they used to been done if you couldn't take any risks.
Mm.
And we built them small and built them like cell phone technology. Yeah. So I think like a high risk, high speed approach definitely is something that we took to the telescope world and then to the satellite
Mm.
world.
So how did you, or maybe it wasn't you at that point, but how were the initial investors in Planet Labs convinced that this was a risk worth taking, or that this risk-based model was worth taking? Because even then it was still especially then it was still a relatively high upfront launch cost to test anything. I maybe that's just the venture capital mentality that I like to think I can think that way, but maybe the fact that it frightens me even now means that I'm a little more traditional than I thought. Do you have any insight into that back then?
Yeah. So Planet was the first real big vision satellite company that got VC funding. As far as like the new space, new kind of approach to space. And I think what made it palatable to a lot of VCs, because at that time space wasn't investable really
Yeah.
in the traditional VC sense, was that Planet is a data company. It's
Mm.
daily imagery of the whole world, and then AI on top of that, and
Yeah.
a whole data platform.
Yeah.
And so the
Not a
VC world understands that software as a service, data subscription, AI
okay.
model. And
Sure.
then Planet was like, okay, we just got to put all these servers in space, and they take the picture,
Right. Right. So
and then it was
it's really
becoming apparent
packaging it.
with SpaceX and with new
Yeah.
rocket companies, like, okay, it is, you don't have to do things the way the government did it or the way NASA did it.
Sure.
That there is a different approach that could be done.
Yeah, and I guess the model was already there with SpaceX rapidly lowering the cost of launch, enabling the creation of companies like Planet, which now we of course saw, which itself enabled the creation of Earth imaging companies that use the data from Planet. So I guess I can see if you zoom out far enough, there's a logical kind of progression here. At what point did you decide that you were done with building spacecraft to look down, and that you wanted to build a spacecraft to put something up there for good?
Yeah, I was at Planet for 5 years. I was originally deep in the technical engineering, designing the
Mm,
camera, and then building
mm,
up teams, and then on like engineering management, and then on strategy and business development and product management. So kind of had gone all around the company and
mm.
done really, really, really got to see it. It was a growing feeling that I was meant to start something else.
Okay.
And it wasn't all completely planned way in advance, but at some point it just kind of was an unfolding, and
Sure.
it's like, okay, something else is meant to happen here.
Sure.
And yeah, and then I gave myself 6 months to kind of not go look for a job, not try to
Mm,
force anything, but spend more time in nature, spend more time with my
mm,
daughter, learn, grow,
mm,
do some trips,
mm.
and see what I was meant to do next. And
Okay.
yeah, like almost right on cue, like 5.5 months into it, I was down in Guatemala and had done this sitting with shamans in the rainforest,
Mm,
and had this vision of the earth as a, not even a vision, more like a connecting with the consciousness of the earth, and then like just
mm.
like a very clear, okay, my purpose is to create the seeds of earth and spread the seeds outwards. And then so I
Okay.
started playing with that vision a bit, and then very quickly was like, okay, let's do a collective monument on the moon and have all different ways that people can be part of it, that brands can be part of it, that other
Mm.
entrepreneurs can be part of it. And so I see these monuments as like a collective platform for anyone to put anything in space. And there's
Interesting.
probably like 20 different companies or organizations or entrepreneurs, maybe
Mm,
more, maybe 30 or 40, that have like gotten their company started by putting something in space with us. And so
I
we are
see.
like making it so even smaller startups
Yeah.
can start their own projects without having to build their own thing and get it to the moon.
Well, it goes back to the power of stories that that's such a mind-boggling opener. It's like, hey, we put something on the moon, and that's is what, and this is why, right? Simon Sinek start with why. I really think that's great. So you mentioned your daughter. Did becoming a parent have anything to do with this perspective? Because I know that for me, everything changed for me the what in space exploration when I became a parent 13 years ago.
Yeah, my daughter's name is Luna Dove.
Mm,
So I definitely, when she was born, was definitely there was a feeling like, oh, we're going to be doing something moon related, and
mm.
Dove is actually the name of the spacecraft at Planet Labs.
Okay.
So
Yes. Okay.
she's named after a spacecraft and the moon. Yeah, having my daughter definitely led towards tons of growth and tons of change in my life, and really, I got divorced in like her first year,
Mm,
and really like felt like I had a different direction, and that direction led towards finding my mission and my purpose, and
sure.
starting this company. And yeah, now she's with me every other week, and we do awesome adventures. And she's a fan of space. And really, when I had this vision of, okay, I'm going to start putting little monuments on the moon that have a backup of
Mm,
life, like a big part of that was like, okay, even if I can't, this will be a fun project to work on with my daughter, and my daughter
sure.
to be part of it. And she's 11 years old, and
Mm,
she's designed the plaque that went in the base of the pyramid
cool.
that's going to the moon, and laid out all the signatures. We put a bunch of
Yeah.
signatures laser etched into this plaque
Uh,
in the pyramid, and her signature's on it. And she was on Canva, like laying them out. So she's helped,
that's
and she's a
awesome.
part of it.
I wonder if Canva knows that their software was used for that. That's pretty cool. So yeah, for me, it put the long time frame of the larger missions into context for me. You know, for the 50 years of Voyager, or even something a little less grand, you know, that still had a 20-year, you know, phase A to E, you know, timing. When my son was born, our first child, I just remembered, oh, this is actually who we're doing all this for. So that it's okay if it takes that long. You know, it can take as long as it takes because it's not about me. At least that was my impression eventually. And now, 13 years later, I've seen things take a very long time. And I think, oh, okay, well, it's convenient that I came to that conclusion because things are going to take a long time, the really hard things. Very, very interesting. So when you decided you were going to do this, that not just that you were going to execute on this vision, where did you start? I mean, I imagine you knew all the right people already, but I mean, what was day one of I'm doing this now?
Yeah, I had gone away for New Year's with a really awesome group of people, including some space people, to this cool, like, I don't know, monastery, old castle on a hill outside Rome in Italy. And we spent like 6 days there. And that's, pretty close after my Guatemala trip, where I had this vision
Mm,
and where it was kind of like starting to settle in.
mm,
And then I spent a week by myself after that in the Italian Alps, because I was already
mm,
over there. I spent an extra week, and I started with like building a deck, and like just getting the vision out there, and getting like, okay, why are we doing this? Who will be a part of this? Who's the customer? Who's the audience?
yeah,
Who's what the business model is? And really started, and making a pitch deck, even if you're nowhere close to like starting to pitch the idea, like
sure,
that is a great way to like start to understand the different aspects of the business. And I could still spend tons and tons of time like making another one, and like
sure.
simplifying it, re getting the vision down. And so I started with that, and then the first product came as send your DNA to the moon. And so
Okay.
I made a and I started working on a consumer kit, kind of inspired a bit by me and the consumer
Mm,
genomics. Like, little boxes that you can get.
Mm,
And so we made a box, and I had a good friend who was actually with me in Guatemala who started helping me, and his name's VJ.
mm,
And then we made all the cards, we made the saliva collection
mm,
thing and how you mail it back, and really just like got all that going. And then in combination with that, I was contacting, and many through contacts I had already, different
mm.
different ways to get to the moon and to get to space. And the first ones we sent up to the International Space Station, and then we got on one moon
Okay.
mission with a partner where it ended up not making it to the moon. Our first one to the moon ran out of
Mm,
fuel on the way there, and they had to bring it
okay.
back and burn it back up in Earth's atmosphere. But then we got on this other mission with Firefly Aerospace, and that had been a contact I had from working in
Sure.
space. So yeah, coming up with the first business model, which for us was consumer, and
Mm,
getting people to do it, and then building out the website. Building at first, I did Facebook ads for
mm.
send your DNA to the moon, and
Yeah. I think I
got
remember
got a few
those.
thousand people on board.
Wow. So when your stated purpose is to put biological material on the moon, I imagine you have different obstacles and regulatory hurdles, or maybe not. I mean, at least I'm thinking with my JPL hat on, my very old JPL hat on, well, usually we try not to do that. So how did that proceed when it became clear that that was what you were doing? And I mean, you're not just digitizing the information and sending it. You're sending the information, right? You're sending
Yeah,
the
we're
actual
sending the
biological material.
the dried strands of
Yeah.
DNA on
Okay.
preserved on this archival membrane designed for long-term DNA storage.
Okay.
So the moon, NASA has actually updated the planetary protection protocols over the last
Mm-hmm.
like 5 years or so, where
Mm-hmm.
they're welcoming biological payloads to the moon.
Interesting.
So most of the moon has gotten declassified down to like no restrictions, essentially. Like there's restrictions around
Oh,
nuclear material and certain things, but
uh-huh.
you can send biological payloads to the moon. I believe the ice covered craters
Mm.
are still protected in a way where you
Okay.
can't you need to be more sterile with your spacecraft, and you need to
Mm.
protect it. But also the way we're preserving DNA, we're embedding it all in this polymer, and so it is confined, and DNA is
Mm.
not a living, like life can't start from just DNA.
Right.
It's not a living organism. It can't reproduce on its own. So yeah, but it definitely was it was a challenge, and we got some pushback
Mm.
from people on it. And then one thing that definitely has been a bit of a hurdle is there's been mostly like media, kind of viral media stories that went out about human remains on the moon, and that certain groups don't want to see the moon turn into a burial ground, which makes
Right.
sense, or don't want to see rich people just like spreading their ashes on the moon.
Yeah.
And for several reasons, human DNA has gotten wrapped up in that conversation around human remains. And
Hmm.
so we've had some challenges on certain landers that don't want to risk being caught up in a negative media story to have human
Mm.
DNA on it. And yet, like, our payload is meant to be a backup of humanity.
Sure.
It's meant to be a celebration of life. So that's been one challenge. As far as getting to Mars, DNA might still be fine getting to Mars if we do it in the right way, and we show how we preserve it and seal it, and we don't have
Mm.
bacteria on it or whatever, active life on it. But Mars definitely has a different planetary protection
Sure.
protocol.
So is that what's next for LifeShip? Is backing up on Mars?
Well, we have a mission going. We have two missions in October of this year, and space missions move around. But one is going back to the moon on a moon rover, and we have another
Okay.
one of these pyramids on the front of this moon rover that'll drive around on the surface. And this one has even a bigger collection of all the
Mm.
things. And then we have one going to an asteroid, and that's like a super exciting mission because this is the first commercial mission to an asteroid. Um,
Okay.
and it is on board. There's a company, Astroforge, which
Mm.
their big mission is to do asteroid mining. And this mission, called the Deep Space 2 mission is going out and landing on an asteroid and then sending some information back, but the spacecraft just stays on the asteroid for forever, and it's out there in deep space. And so we have one of these pyramids on that. And for that one, we also
Okay.
did not put biological life in it because an asteroid is also a pristine thing, and
Right.
we didn't want to risk that mission. Yeah.
So were these artifacts designed in such a way that these records could be read in the future?
Yeah, and to touch on the one last thing, Mars, we want to get to Mars as soon as we can as well. And so, yeah, these artifacts, they have DNA, which, if you're an advanced species that can travel across the
Yeah.
galaxy or whatever, maybe you can read DNA. It might be a universal programming language in a way.
Yeah.
They have these small 1 inch by 1 inch thin nickel plates that have
Mm,
analog images nano engraved in them. So those you can zoom in with a
okay.
microscope and actually see pictures and see information
Okay.
and see text. And then we also put information into this crystal, a
Mm,
5-dimensional crystal, a memory crystal. And that we can do digital information as well as analog images on the exterior of that. And so that we can, put large amounts of information that is designed to last a billion years. It won't get
mm,
affected by the radiation in space, or there's no weathering up there. And so yeah, and then we also have art laser engraved and printed in different ways. We have miniature little statues and miniature little
mm.
art projects that are in it. And so we have all different ways of storing information. And the DNA won't last billions of years, but we did also etch the entire human genome of one person into
Mm.
these ceramic plates, and that'll last a billion years. So we do think, and that is on the moon now. So
Who was the lucky person?
there is it's called the standard reference genome, and I don't think it's like a very common science used one, and
I see.
I think it was the first one ever sequenced.
Oh, so it is a real person. It's just not a known individual.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Wow. That's pretty cool. Well, what comes to mind, and you describe all these different missions, is wouldn't it be a great story to launch something into Earth orbit with a secret message and challenge others to rendezvous with it and read it
Uh-huh.
as some kind of educational thing? I don't know. This is just something that comes to mind.
Yeah. We
Absolutely
did.
fascinating.
We did. We do have a crypto key on this one up there that can be read, and that there is like a secret crypto wallet that has it.
Oh,
So
nice.
there is a bit of a bounty for it as well, but we also
Okay.
don't want to encourage going and getting it. So
Yeah.
there's a
Yeah.
yeah,
Wait, is that the one on the moon?
the one that on the moon has that.
So crypto has actually gone interplanetary, is what you're saying.
There's yes. And then we actually put like the Bitcoin white paper and
Mm.
like the initial Genesis block
Ah,
ledger of it as well.
okay.
We put a bunch of crypto stuff on it as well.
Well, if there's one force in society that will follow uh beyond the ends of the earth, it's the crypto community. So that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, this has been really fascinating. I want to help share this message. Of course, this is why I'm doing this episode. Any thoughts in closing about, the next 5 years, other than what you've said already? I think I get a sense of your personal philosophy, but what would you share with everyone listening? What else would you share?
Yeah. This is like what an incredible time to be alive. And yes, there's big unknowns. There's
Mhm.
crazy exponential things running off in potentially scary directions, but there's also so much exponentially positive, beautiful things being created that can enable us to live better here on Earth, to care for our planet, to become a multi-planetary and then galactic species. Yeah, so I'm excited about our future. We need to earn a gorgeous future, and we need to work for it. I think believing in the direction we're headed, and or building that beautiful future is within our reach, and it's happening faster than most people think. And I think we will the next big rockets will be carrying hundreds of people and carry
Mm.
100 people to the moon, and we could in the next like 5, 7, yeah, there will be cities being built on the moon, and decades from now, a few decades, 20, 30 years, there could be 1 million people living in space, and so this will radically open, just like when airplanes suddenly could fly intercontinental, then like, oh, that changed the world, and it happened
Yeah.
fast. Well, we live in a much faster time, and these rockets are like airplanes, and there's going to be thousands of them being built, and so yeah, space is opening. We can all be part of it. The costs are going to come down. There are all sorts of things that need to be done. There's all sorts of opportunities to create. Um, I'm one of the things that I'm building towards is we've built small monuments. We're building bigger
Mm.
ones, and then
Mm.
I want to build a temple on the moon. Like send people
Okay.
up there and hold an awesome event, kind of like a Burning Man on the moon,
Yeah.
where you go to set up the temple,
Uh,
and then like over time, it becomes a sacred cosmic transformational place to visit, and then
yeah.
more art can be set up around it, and really, yeah, I'm excited about not just like the mining and the robots
Mm.
and go stay in a luxury space hotel. Like I care about going for a transformational experience and making it accessible and making something that is meaningful and impactful and is community driven and yeah, I think we live in we're creating and dreaming up an exciting future, and these things will happen.
Well, I think that is a wonderful theme to end on, and I want to echo your goal where now I might go out in the wilderness or someone might go on a trip to the rainforest to feel closer with nature, but it will be sooner than we think that you can go all the way to the moon for that and experience the expansion of perspective that that will bring. So I think with that, we're going to call it on this one. Really uh, eye-opening interview. So thank you for chatting with me. This has been the Space Madness Podcast, and we'll see you in the next one.